to break the law.
Welcome to Green Crush. We are going to crush it today because it's not just green on the outside. It's also red and pink and juicy in the middle. It's watermelon. Watermelon is going to be our guest today. And if you don't know watermelon, too bad for you. She's great. And you'll get to know her. So it'll be okay. You'll get to fix the defect in your life that is you don't know who watermelon is, and you'll have a much better time of things. On Green Crush, what is Green Crush? People ask me that all the time. What does it even mean, that? Green Crush? What is that? How come? Like, if it's green and it's a crush, like it's a Candy Crush? So here's what it is. Green Crush is cannabis. This demonized plant over the centuries. Cannabis. That is the green part. So I just didn't want to, I couldn't do like, this show is called Cancer Things Dealt With in a Cannabis Kind of Way. That was too long, and, it didn't sound concise, because you have to consider that while you're doing these things and while you're trying to promote this aspect of a lifestyle that doesn't need to be shat upon by those who lord over us. What we're trying to do here is just explain to people that the green is the cannabis. Okay, this is really simple so far, right? Like you figured that out by now. The green is the cannabis, and the crush is what can happen to cancer if you apply the cannabis correctly. Which doesn't mean the old bullshit phrase that you're... Everybody knows that, like, smoking a joint can't cure cancer. You're full of shit. Like, you can't believe how many times I've heard people with voices almost as ridiculous as that. But you always have to embellish a little bit, right, in the entertainment business. But they do kind of get upset about it, and they don't know what it means. So basically, once again, it's not hard. Green is the cannabis. And crush is what it does to cancer. And therefore, you're also crushing the laws. The so-called made-em-ups by the so-called people that have more authority than us. To make up a bunch of strictures that prevent access to a healthful commodity, quality, plant, item, free thing that comes out of the ground when you get right down to it. So that's what all of this is about. But, I really, I can't fit all of that in the title. So we'll just do the show as is, and we're going to have Watermelon on, and she's fantastic. And I'm also going to cover a few other things. Let's get busy with the show. This is Green Crush. You're listening to us on the Eggplant Digital Network. From the Pacific Junction Hotel in Toronto, 234 King Street East. Always good stuff to eat. Come in and see. Yes, the Eggplant Digital Network, Canada's leading creative content hub, with Russell on the control board. And we'll need him today because Watermelon's here. We're going to go back and forth on Skype. And so this is where you folks who don't have a video access on this particular podcast are at a slight deficit. I admit it. We're not trying to gear things for the visual solely, but sometimes it's fun to do. But you can also listen to it on your download on your iTunes. It's still going to be a good show, despite the fact that you'll miss out on some of the viz. So what's getting crushed today is... this episode will be combining. I realize that a lot of these things are like Venn diagrams, where I can't really even have on this show, I can't even have a topic that stands alone sometimes. They all merge together. And this one is going to combine cops or truth. It's always one or the other. And nopioids, saying no to opioids. I'm speaking extra slowly for the would-be animators. We've already had some pretty funny... animated clips come up of the show getting done. This seems to be a thing now, a field of creative funniness that was... I didn't really realize it before, but a lot of people have had their stuff cartoonified, and it's kind of funny and definitely flattering. So thanks for a couple of those. And what's the next thing? Oh, yeah, so Cops Are Truth, Nopioids, and Unblinded Me With Science. because there's a lot of science at hand here today. And but we're going to start by unraveling the bullshit that was the Ontario proposal. It's an Ontario proposal to handle the cannabis laws, because Canada itself, the government of Canada, has been stating for some time now, despite the constantly arresting people for partaking in something that is going to be available to everybody soon or something. Is that how it goes? I don't know. I lost track of the plot, the federal plot. It drives me nuts. But basically, these guys have laid down that they're going to have a July, probably the punted down the road, but it's a July 1st announcement day, an enrollment day, an enlistment day, an enactment day of the legal system wrapped around the bud. And there is one now, and it's going to change. It's basically like, how did we used to bust you before involving cannabis? And we're going to be transitioning to a thing in July 18 called, this is how we're going to bust you now for cannabis. So it's different stuff. You got to pay attention to what's being manipulated around here. So that's going to be happening next year. But then the Ontario government has jumped the gun, and they say they've been working on a proposal for about a year now. And this proposal was put to us not this Friday gone by, but the one before. And last week's episode, I kind of got cut off. I wasn't able to finish things. Something happened to the internet. So this is part 2 of that. I think I was going to stretch it to that anyway, because there's so much shit to shovel. But yeah, they came out with this proposal. Now, this is not just a proposal. This is, if this were to be carried out, and it would take an incredible amount of foolishness to make sure that happened, it would be one of the most ridiculous series of constructs that are going to absolutely harm and hurt people in a legal sense. And you can't believe anyone worked on it for a year, because everyone that heard about it in a couple of days or a day or that afternoon were going, this is crazy, from all of the right-wing publications in this country, the more centrist ones and the ones on the left. No one thinks this is a good idea. And it's instantly provable when you listen to some of the things they have to say. So before we get to that, we have another thing I'd like to do here. And that is to define the word proposal. Now, everyone's freaking out about the fact that these are the new Ontario laws and they're totally screwed and it's not fair. Yeah, I know. But it's a proposal. So the dictionary says that a proposal is the act of proposing. It is a plan that is proposed. It is an offer. Let's go to Merriam-Webster Dictionary just for a second, like you don't always. The definition of proposal is an act of putting forward or stating something for consideration. It's a suggestion by a bunch of fucking idiots. You should see this thing. We covered a bunch of it last week, and here we go right back to... Now, I don't have this man's name. He's the Attorney General of Ontario. I can get away with that because I'm not really like a news guy. I'm just a guy that reads news and brings some of it to use. So this guy, I don't know what his name is. He's the shortest one in the middle there. He started off the talk. We got on some of this last week on episode 9. And this guy is very uncomfortable in his body language to me. I don't like any of these guys in their body language, but we'll get to that later. But listen to what this guy has to say. We'll just pick him up in midstream. It doesn't even matter. It's not like you have to go to the beginning to fully comprehend the whole thing. Like, you don't need to drink an entire river to understand how much water is going on in there. You can stop here, stop there, go fishing, whatever. You don't need to take the whole thing in. So we're just going to lap at the brook here of the babbling nonsense that comes from these overpaid idiots that have been spending a year to come up with a plan that immediately the next day, even the RCMP said, we won't be ready by then. So this year of planning thing that they say they're doing, like, none of that planning involved picking up the phone and calling the cops to see if they could fucking handle it or not. Now, please don't confuse this in my sense of like that I condone what the officer's response has been drawn up to be ahead of time to guarantee as many busts as there were before it was legal. I don't know all of that. But what I do know is these cats are super uncool and they are super complicated, and you know, they're not selling something amazing. Like, you know, I said this before, like if you see Elon Musk or one of these guys comes out with a fantastic new revelation, they're proud, they're happy, they're beaming energy. These guys look like they're trying to get away with something. Like little kids, you know, one of them broke the cat's tail and none of them want to admit who done it. It's so fucking transparent. But anyway, let's get a little of this guy on the screen. And
widely led to some anxieties about the impact.
Oh, that's what I want. That's what I. Okay, this is what he says here. He says that the changes of the laws that are being discussed rightly lead to anxiety. Now, what kind of fucking idiot says, "Hey, that's good that leads to anxiety"? I understand there are concerns and issues, particularly to those of the ignorant who don't realize the impact and the efficacy of this substance, if you would like to call it that, as a problem. But these guys here are laying down a system that is cartoonish if you really just listen to what they're saying. So I do have them on the screen, but maybe we'll just listen to it. But listen to this guy. He says, rightly led to anxiety. There's no statement where that would really sound like a sensible thing to say. And they're all about being sensible, aren't they? So how you could rightly lead yourself to anxiety. And this is just like a minute into this press conference. And so right away the flags go up and go, this guy wants to lead me to anxiety? Luckily there are drugs for that, huh? So listen to this guy warm up to here, and he's got something to say after that as well.
Topic that we know is accompanied by some concerns for Ontario families. Such a considerable change has rightly led to some anxieties about the impact of legalization on our communities, our roads, and our children's health. The people of...
Okay, so that's the first thing. He's concerned about the children's health. They're always going to put that up first. Which would be great if that's what they really meant.
Ontario rightfully expect their government to approach legalization thoughtfully and responsibly.
But they don't, because they've come up with things that have them at odds with the police. Like the police can't even believe that these folks are trying to push through what they're trying to push through. So, as I was trying to say earlier before I rudely interrupted myself, don't mistake that on my part as an endorsement for what the police intend to do in reflection to these, or in creation to this new paradigm they're involved in. I don't endorse it. I'm just acknowledging that they do have a response. They will be setting up new ways to arrest people and et cetera. And their infrastructure that they want to hoist, even though I might be against it, they're telling the government, we can't get it up in time. You know, which is not, you know, hard to imagine if you've ever seen some of the members of the government. But anyway, we'll move on to this other chunk. I got a few of these that I wanted to dip into, so we'll see how we do with that. Here we go.
We have a responsibility to ensure that our young people have every opportunity to realize their full potential. A responsibility to do what we can to protect and educate our youth about the dangers of substance abuse.
Okay, you're going to educate them about the dangers of substance abuse. Are you also going to educate them about the positive aspects of this particular plant? That's got to be the next part of your sentence.
A responsibility to ensure that all Ontarians are protected from the dangers of second-hand smoke, and that includes from cannabis.
Okay, so then answer me this. Why is it then, this is under the proposal, why is it that if you want to make sure that you're being responsible and you're limiting cannabis usage to the home, and what if there are children in that home? Then what happens? Oh, you can go outside? Okay. Well, what if your balcony is one of those, you know, those kind of balconies where it's just a little panel of something and then the neighbor's right over there? What if it's one of those? while you're outlawing vape lounges and places to go and do it in public under the consenting people. This is how sensible this plan is. You can sit through all 36, 37 minutes of this psycho babble and pick one of these nonsensical pieces of meat out of your teeth every 10 seconds, sometimes less than that. Total fiction. Here are the dangers of... Why don't we talk about the dangers of fire? Why don't we talk about the dangers of Wi-Fi at 5G? Or, oh, sorry, is somebody already heavily profiting on that? Oh, okay. Leave it alone then. Like, this agenda becomes clearer and clearer with every aspect of the story that is obfuscated by these trained monkeys. Go on, sir. Oh, is it going to... Now it's buffering. Buffering, brought to you by broadband. Broadband, brought to you by the internet. The internet, brought to you by... I don't know. Looks like we're not going to have that one coming in. All right. You know, every week something goes wrong with the tech on this fucking show. It drives me out of my fucking mind. We've been trying to pin everything down, and today we had somebody add some drama to that scene.
And while we may explore the possibility of allowing licensed establishments for the consumption of cannabis in the future...
You might allow it. And then what he was going to say was, but I lost my internet again, was that, we'll think about it. We're not going to bring that aspect up right now. While there are salient, crucial, foundational aspects of properly getting any kind of transition that will be successful together, we're just going to throw up a bunch of sticks in a fucking thunderstorm. So it kind of goes on like that, and I guess I'm getting the message from our broadband provider that I've done about enough of the old YouTube clippy clips, and that's okay, because it's time now for me to focus on dialing up. We're going to go to the Skype machine now, and thank goodness we have a friend today that come on the show. She's wonderful. We're going to ding her up right now. Hang on. Mary Jean Dunsdon, so we're not quite there yet. Oh, gosh.
I was just wondering if that crazy guy came back or what.
It's me. Are you there? Can we see your picture? There she is. Fantastic.
Here.
Okay, so I'm going to bust this wide open. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure. This is so weird because, where do you often, introduce someone and you can actually see them at the same time? Usually you're supposed to be off stage or, whatever. But this is cool.
You ready?
Okay, so here is, folks. This is please don't cover your face. I mean, God, that's
okay. That's gonna come out like ta-da.
I know you're full of ta-das, as I recall. So, folks, guess what? I've been in stand-up comedy for a long time. I started in Vancouver, and that's where I met Watermelon, like back in the early 90s. And she was marauding Wreck Beach, which is known for its recklessness in its clothing code. Everybody takes it off and has a lot of fun and takes it easy. And Watermelon would not only provide refreshments in the way of saleable goods and drinks, they were packed with cannabis too. I mean, it was like living in a dream world. And she was always ahead of the curve, and I knew that. But everything I've been through with my particular journey through and back and forth through cancer and using cannabis, and what I've thought in retrospect about Watermelon, Mary Jean Dunsdon, is amazing because she was so far ahead of the curve at the time. And so now I'm so thrilled to understand that somebody with such deep roots in the integrity of this plant and what it does and how it works and is aware of all of the bullshit that comes from the propaganda. You're actually running for office, and I'm so happy to have you on the show today.
Thank you. Thanks, Alan.
So I see you got some hula hoops behind you there.
Yeah, I got some hula hoops. That's my new fitness, and I sell hula hoops at my candy store.
You found them?
I own a candy store that sells hula hoops, so we have we work off the calories right before we even get any. With that ahead of the curve, Alan.
I'm not going to doubt any of this. I mean, you nailed it the first time, so you were on top of things 20 years ago. So tell us all give us a little story about who you are, because I met you as a comic. I met you as a baker of tasty goods that were so infused with the wonder stuff, and that was amazing. But you were also you kind of got more into a television production aspect. You put a show out about how to bake all these cool things, and you've sort of moved through and always been providing these wonderful, tasty treats. And now you're at this place of you're running for office. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, it's quite a journey. I feel like now I've sort of been preparing for this office thing my whole life, but only in retrospect. So I came to Vancouver in 1992, and I'd heard about Wreck Beach. Who hadn't heard about Wreck Beach? I mean, it's the last frontier of freedom. Naked people enjoying themselves, smoking pot and laughing and being outside and having drinks in the sunshine. I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, that was fun.
Went straight there. I got to Vancouver. I went straight to Wreck Beach, but I got there maybe late. And then I went again the next year. I didn't get naked right away. I probably got topless first, and then, eventually once you get naked, it's over and the big deal's over.
Right.
And then I started selling T-shirts for an 80-year-old Irish bootlegger named Patty White. And selling T-shirts to nude people was a difficult job. Like, you make a lot of money at it. I sold T-shirts. But one day I woke up. Here's how the whole watermelon thing started. I wish I could tell you it was more glamorous. I woke up hungover after we partied all night long and did mushrooms on Wreck Beach, dancing on the fire, full moon. Woke up parched, needed a drink. No vendors on the beach. I was so thirsty. I was desperate. Finally, a vendor came down and he sold me a can of fruit juice.
Right.
And the fruit juice was so sweet. I looked at it, it said all natural, 5% real fruit. So it was just sugar water, and it was worse than water. And I was like, I would have paid, and it was $2 for this fruit juice in 1992, 93. I would have paid $2 for an apple. So the very next day, I went to the grocery store. I bought apples, oranges, watermelons, mangoes, and honeydew. And I walked down to Wreck Beach, and I sold every piece of fruit I brought that day. And I made $80.
$80. That's a good haul for the day back then, huh?
On my first day, 18 years old, first day working for myself, I made $80 profit. It's really hard to turn back after you learn to work for yourself. And by the time I was 25, I'd worked so much. I've been self-employed since I was 25 now.
That's
selling
amazing.
watermelon and paw cookies on Wreck Beach. Eventually, I branched into paw cookies. I had this dehydration program going on that really worked out. And I retired after 22 years of service in 2015 from Wreck Beach.
Well, what's the dehydration? Tell us a little bit about that methodology.
Dehydrating, paw cookies, and watermelon rehydrating, you see?
Oh, I see now, yeah. Okay, I just wanted to hear a little bit of an elaboration because it's fun to listen to. So that's amazing. So now you're I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was my journey through the nude beach, where also, I don't know, in 2001, September 8th, 2001, 3 days before the big 911 happened, I was arrested for the first time for allegedly trafficking ginger snap cookies. And if you've never been arrested before, I mean,
hey, what are you in for? Ginger snap cookies.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so harsh.
It was pretty harsh at the time. I was arrested many times for allegedly trafficking ginger snap cookies. I don't know if you know, but I had 3 provincial trials. 3. No. 1, 2, 3. And 3 provincial acquittals. I took a hat trick in our Canadian provincial courts.
For selling cookies.
Yes, I was charged with allegedly trafficking ginger snap cookies. I had probably 6 counts in total. 3 different trials, and my lawyer, John Conroy, knocked every one of those out of the park.
Oh, John Conroy, yeah. We got to get him on. I know who he is. We got to get him on sometime. He's a brilliant man from everything I've read.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is a wonderful man, a very clever man. But let me say this. Before my arrest, I was just this happy girl, selling pot cookies, working on the clothing optional beach. After my arrest, I'm nationally branded, and now I'm selling more pot cookies than ever. So thanks, Canada.
Yeah, that's the thing. When they try, this is a basic fundamental principle. When they try to, and when I say the overlords, right? When they try to limit things down to that, they create this black market by saying the way that they're trying to legalize it in certain ways where they still control it. Like it's a blueprint for keeping the illegality about it existing. I mean, this thing is ridiculous that it even that it even gets to this level, but it's all a perception, right? So you obviously don't have that problem. You're
Yeah, no, cannabis has been legal in my mind for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you know.
Yeah. And then you get to the
everybody else to catch up.
You get to the Parker ruling and everything. So tell us about this election that you're running in soon. And when is that? And what's the party? And what are you going to do? And what are you going to bring to the people?
Well, I got to tell you, Alan, it's the perfect storm right now because it is a by-election. And a by-election, they don't come around very often. That one of our city council members left to join the NDP, who's now our provincial government, to be the chief of staff, and we have one open seat. So the by-election becomes a perfect storm because we've created a new party called Sensible Vancouver, born of Sensible BC. Sensible BC started campaigning before Justin Trudeau came out and said he was going to legalize cannabis. They were campaigning for a referendum on the decriminalization of cannabis and probably got over 140,000 signatures in the province. So we've since transferred our party called Sensible Vancouver. And we are vying for this open seat on city council because cannabis is going to be legalized, so we're told, for recreational use. And we want to be on city council because how can you meaningfully talk about cannabis regulation and going forward if you don't have somebody like me on your panel? I'm Switzerland, right? You can't. It's like talking about sex worker advocacy and not having a sex worker on the panel, right?
Yeah.
You can't meaningfully talk about it. Now, I have intimate knowledge of the cannabis community. I have access to the cannabis community. I know the pitfalls. So they need me on city council while they figure out the regulations. Otherwise, my theory is you're a captain about to set sail with mutiny on the horizon. Are you with me? If you don't meaningfully integrate the craft cannabis players that exist today in retail and growing, these people there will be mutiny because cannabis has been illegal forever. So how can any of us be anything but criminals, right? So when they talk to criminals, it's a wonderful narrative that they're using. But these people have been around. Cannabis, the legalization of cannabis isn't a benevolent gift from our overlords. We fought for it.
Yeah.
We fought for it. So this idea of handing it off to our prohibitionists is absolutely unacceptable to us.
Yeah.
And I think actually Mark Emery said it quite clearly in these Ottawa lectures we just had.
Yeah.
How they made this illegal was they put it as a Schedule I drug. You meaningfully want to legalize cannabis, you take cannabis out of that Schedule I drug. But the problem if they do that, all their power crumbles to the ground.
Well, that's the whole reason, is all their power goes to... Listen, you've seen this. You bring up a great point. I was hitting on it in the show later on, and maybe now I don't need to, but I will anyway. It's that the whole thing about transitioning from the way we arrest you now for using cannabis, we're going to make up a bunch of new rules, and then this will be how we arrest you later, and it's just a transition going on. But what happens? They say, we need to consider the children, and they kind of use that as it's an umbrella term that doesn't really mean anything because they come up with other results that do affect and damage and hinder children at the same time. But
the children of cannabis users, do you not have to protect those children? What
exactly.
about the children with cancer? Do you not have? It's a very small group of children they're pretending to protect.
But first they go right to they go, well, okay, well, yeah, but there's all that is valid, but we've got to make sure how the police are going to be okay with this.
It's legal. Why do we need the police?
We have to. That's their number one consideration. Like, how are we going to make this okay for the cops? Like, it's going to be different, and there's going to be training, and boy, oh boy, because you know what all of that is covering up is that if you genuinely go from less of a legalization but to a decriminalization, all of a sudden you don't have all those man hours required anymore. All those arrests that went down are gone, right? You've got a limited workforce. You've got less stuff to do, fewer people to arrest, and so that's what they're doing. That's what they're fixing up.
There's a lot of white-collar crime. We can maybe use those police officers. Maybe they don't need to be so nervous. Maybe they need to go and get real bad guys. How about that?
Yeah.
A lot of the real bad guys today come in the white-collar sector, not people running around trying to. Did I freeze on you? No.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah. Cannabis, right?
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true.
So this is my point. This cannabis community that I've been involved in has been passionately behind the scenes trying to legalize cannabis for years, even though it was illegal. Now they're going to legalize it. What do they think we're going to roll over? Okay, you legalized it. We'll be nice. we're not going to be nice. We're going to undermine, if you don't meaningfully integrate us into the regulatory framework, it's going to undermine it. And you can see in Colorado, any compliant players, they integrated into the framework. Colorado's brimming with money, and Washington, they didn't. Washington, they said, oh, you're all criminals, only these people can have it. And Washington has a booming black market, undermining the legal market, making cannabis $20 a gram or whatever, right? Ultimately, it's a plant, and what they keep forgetting is when the court of public opinion is no longer afeard of the plant, they are not going to offer up their tax dollars to police services to protect them from their neighbor growing 4 plants in their backyard.
Yeah.
Once a plant is a plant, it's like tomatoes. You don't call and say, my neighbor has more than 4 tomato plants in the backyard. Please send the SWAT team.
Yeah.
The taxpayers are no longer going to care if they're no longer afeard of the plant. It's just a green leafy vegetable. But years ago, they separated and said, one of these green leafy vegetables is not like the other ones, but it's exactly like the other ones.
Yeah.
You need to eat your greens, people.
You do need to eat your greens, and you need to eat them. I'd like to know all the testing they do, and the government does testing or is behind testing that tells you exactly what it is that's so healthy about kale and dark greens and Brussels sprouts. So there's obviously scientific data to that effect. And I say they need to pivot it on cannabis, or if they already have and they're just hiding the facts, like they don't need this terrible thing to be a great nutritive property. They don't need it to be something that can help you see beyond their bullshit control strictures, you know? And they don't need it to be replacing the police force, because by rights, there's just fewer man hours necessary now. Maybe the budgets can come down once in a while along with a lowering crime rate, instead of always worried about, we've got to make sure all the cops have their jobs, and switching it from one kind of legalization to another. But these are the kinds of things you're going to bring to council? Is that what you're going to do?
What I want to bring to council is somebody who understands the cannabis community. And you know, Vancouver is situated in the heart of British Columbia, and British Columbia is almost entirely funded by cannabis.
Right.
We can agree on that, right?
Canada's Wonder Farm.
We really are passionate, my team and I, about making Vancouver, if we can get some sensible, some inclusive regulations around cannabis so it can benefit everybody and not like the proverbial 5 or 6 rich guys.
Right.
Then this is going to resonate out to all the municipalities around. We've been hosting events asking dispensaries who want to come out and support our cause. Dispensaries came from Nanaimo. They came from Whistler. They came from all over, because they said whatever happens in your municipality is what our municipalities are going to adopt. So this cannabis community in British Columbia is so passionate. We are the cannabis lobby, and we are getting in there. We're coming in this by-election. We're getting into city council, and we're making cannabis beneficial for everybody.
And you want to do this because
corporate dudes that nobody knows who were once on the prohibition team, not those guys.
What do you say? And this is all great stuff, because it needs to be, and you got to stop ignoring it. But what do you say to the people? Like, what do you personally say to people who say, you know, this is all about bike gangs and organized crime and all this kind of thing, and that's why we don't want it, and that's why it's illegal, and that's why the government should sell it. Like, what do you say to someone that has that sort of more mainstream perspective?
The only reason there's bike gangs and organized crime is because it's illegal, right? Prohibition is, there's so many harms that come from prohibition, not what they're prohibiting. The prohibition itself causes most of the harms. That's what we've noticed, right? So even within that prohibition, it creates this weird black market. I've personally been in the weed business 25 years. I've never hung out with bikers. So I don't know. I mean, these are like stories. I'm sure the bikers have some hold on it. I don't know. I don't know these bikers, and I've been in the business 25 years.
Right, but then the bikers aren't selling tomatoes.
You legalize it, and that all goes away. I'm for the
It's kind of breaking up a bit.
That's,
We're kind of losing you a little bit. Hang on a second. We're just we're just kind of at a loss right now. I'm gonna get out of there, and let's see. Oh, there she is. Okay, let's try it again. Might have been a dead spot. This would not be a commercial for your favorite cell phone right now.
There's something interesting happening happening here in Vancouver, I don't know if you're aware of, there's 2 cannabis substitution programs going on. One is at the overdose prevention site that Sarah Blythe has run, and it's called High Hopes. And a lot of the dispensaries in Vancouver are donating cannabis and cannabis products, and they're handing them out to opioid addicts as a substitution program. There's another one at Vancouver that Neil Magnuson runs every Tuesday, and they give away free cannabis and cannabis products to anybody in the downtown east side who wants it. So, you know, cannabis is also going to help. We have a massive opioid crisis happening all across this entire country, and we believe cannabis is part of the solution for
sure.
that.
Can you just, you know what happened? We got a bit fuzzy on the picture and sound there, and I want you to just go back and mention those 2 places again a bit slower, because it was too fuzzy, and I know those are helpful, but we didn't really fully hear them.
Certainly. Modern Heroes right now, Sarah Blythe is at the overdose prevention site. They have set up, just citizens practically who set it up on their own, and now they have a cannabis substitution program where they're collecting cannabis donations from all the dispensaries around town. Anybody wants to give, and they're giving it away free or cheap to opioid addicts in the downtown east side. So Sarah Blythe works at the High Hopes Foundation in the overdose prevention site, and then Neil Magnuson runs another one out of Vandu.
Okay.
Every Tuesday, I believe, and they give away free cannabis and cannabis products to opioid addicts in the downtown east side. We believe that cannabis is the exit drug and is a solution for some of our opioid crisis as well.
Well, there's a lot of reason to believe that.
You bring our tax money in, we can help some homeless people. You bring that cannabis in, we can get people off opioids. You know, it's a win-win. Cannabis is here to save the day, Alan. You know that.
I know that. I'm just trying to find holes in the story. But what do these folks say when they say, well, how do you prove that? I mean, would they say, how do you prove that cannabis can save you from the opioid crisis?
Well, I didn't say cannabis alone can save us from the opioid crisis. Of course, it's just one small solution. But I think I would find some science journals that explained it, or talk about. I just give you a million people who I know who wean themselves off. I've made a joke on Skype that opioids really helped me wean myself off cannabis. Nobody ever, right?
Right.
Nobody ever was using opioids to try to get off cannabis and make their life better. But millions, if not
trying to do the other way around, yeah.
Take cannabis trying to get off opioids because they find it doesn't disrupt their life the same way that opioids do, of course, right? And the people who make opioids and oxycodone, well, they're cruising around in yachts having a great time. And the people who make cannabis, well, some of us are rotting in jail. So we really need to think about this concept. And if you want meaningful legalization, you need to start apologizing or giving or taking away all these charges that we've given people over the years. If it's going to be meaningful, otherwise it's just insulting. They're just insulting everybody in the cannabis community by kind of co-opting it and having this new cannabis thing that just serves the government and their rich corporate
Well, we're the
friends.
last ones considered. That's what I mean. I mean, first they go to the cops, and then they go to the corporations, and then they go to the distribution models like they're trying to do here in Ontario with a liquor board kind of model. And the last people they talk to are the folks that actually use it for, that know what they're talking about, like yourself. You're the last person they're going to talk to. That's why it's great that you're going to get on council. So vote for vote watermelon, right? Hashtag vote watermelon.
Vote watermelon, or you can go to votewatermelon.ca, or you can go to Sensible Vancouver, which I believe is .ca, and also on Facebook. We have quite a huge team behind me. We have some other policies. You want to hear any of my
Yes,
other
I
ones?
do. Yes, we do. We're not done. I just wanted to make sure we get that out there.
Sure.
Yeah.
We are talking a lot. Vancouver has a homeless problem and an affordable housing crisis. I mean, both of them are in crisis, actually, homeless and housing. Now,
Right.
I've been looking a lot into that. That's really a tough one. It's really about the three arms of government: the province, the feds, and the municipality. But every article I've read on homelessness, and there were 7 of them, the latest ones, and 4 of them were funded by the Canadian government themselves. The only solution to homelessness, Alan, is homes. Yeah, but you think it's cheeky? That's the actual only solution, and so
Homes.
we don't know how homes.
Yeah, places to live in.
And it's interesting. The NDP is talking right now about a basic income, and I thought, gosh, should we talk about a basic shelter? Like a basic income would go a lot further if you had a basic shelter, even if that was a tent or some kind of modular home. I don't know what that is. I don't know what the answer is. Like, I'm a renter in Vancouver. I don't have the answer, but we have some other ideas where we'd like to see maybe transit, like bus passes free to students, low-income people, and seniors. Maybe while you can't afford to live in your one-bedroom apartment with two other people, you can still get on a bus and go to a job interview. You can still
Right.
get on a bus and go to school and learn some skills. Maybe if the impediment to a home is so large, maybe the impediment to transportation to help better your life. So we're actually shooting for free transit for everybody. If not for everybody, students, low income, and seniors. We want them to have free transit in Vancouver. That also will do a lot to solve our problem of cars going downtown, and they're like, how you can't get anywhere. We have gridlock in this city, right? We don't have enough
Right.
taxis in this city, and we're not allowed ride sharing in this city. So I don't know, you ever try to cab and go downtown, you just can't. You can't get there on time. So maybe free buses will encourage more people to take transit and stop that congestion. So those are our platforms we have. And on the opioid crisis, transportation, and housing is a really tough one. Affordable housing. What
Yeah.
can the city do? And, I don't only want to put forth solutions of things the city can do. And all I hear about a lot are things that city can't do. And it's actually in the realm of the province or the feds, right? The provincial government used to provide housing. So nobody can afford to live in Vancouver anymore.
Yeah, it's getting nuts, right?
Getting nuts. And hundreds, if not thousands of people are employed at these dispensaries. They're making $12, $15 an hour trying to afford that one bedroom they share with two other buddies. And now we're going to come and shut all these dispensaries down that offered up all these jobs to these young kids with no jobs. Like, I don't know, going around arresting. So the model is to shut the dispensaries down, arrest everybody in there, round them up, and then put new weed dispensing models in place. I don't know. It just seems like an attack on the people who fought to be.
Yeah, I get concerned about when they say they're going to make all these controls, because like they say, they don't usually involve people that know what it's about. And I don't understand the mindset of saying, well, we're going to throw these rules in and then we'll see how it goes. It's like, you don't do that with a foundation for a house. You don't just, let's put up a couple floors and the attic's in the basement. And if that don't work, then we'll tear it apart and do it again. Like there's no sense running on a bogus platform, but they keep ignoring these models, these successful models, the successful Colorados, and they want to go and wind up doing the things that didn't work. And it just feels to me like it's a bit of an agenda sometimes, because not only do folks like yourself and myself and other people want to use it and do use it and are going to use it no matter what, and so obviously we don't want to go to jail for that. There's a ton of people that don't partake in this thing that also don't want it to be illegal because they see the stupidity in having it be illegal. So you're dealing with like a massive majority of people that want it to be okay and have it and use it, and this tiny sliver of bureaucrats that seem to be powered by these ninnies that write worrisome letters, and hopefully the right plan is to develop an anxiety about all of this. It doesn't make any sense.
And you know what it happened? You know who it costs for them to put forth meaningless regulations that they know are wrong and will have to fix? You know who it costs, Alan? Us, the
Us
taxpayer.
again, yeah.
So if I can see that you're driving up the wrong way on a street, do you know what I mean? I'm going to have to pay when you have to drive back and redirect yourself. So let's start it. Let's write. We've gotten so many things wrong.
There's time to change it. There's time.
Let's try to start this doing it right with meaningful things. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be regulated in some way. Of course it needs to be regulated. I mean, maybe it's just a green leafy vegetable, but we could do that in a meaningful way. We don't have to hijack it.
Yeah.
Cannabis is like, they show pictures of people in zoot suits, going through these laboratories. Like somehow that's supposed to make us feel like comforted.
Yeah.
But cannabis is like when you go to the grocery store, Alan, where do you get your basil? Where's your spinach? Where's your broccoli? Can you pick it up and put it down, and the next person pick it up and put it down?
Yeah.
And they're absolutely creating a villain where one isn't. You know what I mean? Like this idea, like, you can't even touch cannabis without some kind of zoot suit on. That's totally ridiculous.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, maybe in a science lab, but we're talking about a plant We're talking about a plant,
Yeah.
everybody.
Well, you might
know?
respond with it's if it's anything like the giant hogweed, we're in trouble. But it's a totally different thing. It's not a poisonous jumping cholla cactus. It's this very healthful, scientifically. I want to see some more data on that. Like if it exists, I'm not even sure. Right? It's one of my searches I want to do. But when you talk about the government saying what all these properties are about kale and all these greens that you mentioned, the vegetables. Where's the data on analyzing cannabis for the same thing? I mean, I'm sure it has all that and the psychoactive and restorative components that you're supposed to be taking in.
There is some data on that. In fact, one of the most beneficial ways, probably in the future, to consume cannabis would be to juice it a lot like wheatgrass.
Yeah.
The problem is right now, where would you get a whole bunch of little sprouts of cannabis you could mow down and juice, right?
Well, that would be illegal to be that healthy.
I mean, once it's legal, I bet you see something like a wheatgrass bar because it's got all the chlorophyll and all those riboflavins and whatever, all those other good nutrients that are in there. I'm not a scientist. But cannabis is a green leafy vegetable. We forget that. You could just use cannabis in your, like in food.
But how much would you need, seriously? How much would you need in the way of plants to be able to sustain? And I totally agree with you. This is the link to the healthcare costs plummeting. If you get a mother who's breastfeeding a baby while she's consuming the vegetable in the juice form, and you can juice it down, you can make ice cubes out of it and throw it in a smoothie later, whatever. And if that's part of your nutritive intake, all of a sudden your CB1 and 2 receptors are not wanting the cannabis. They're just processing it like they're supposed to. And instead of denying yourself that nutritive compound from the get-go, that's how come you get diabetes. That's why you develop cancer. All these things were just not powered up enough. It's like advocating the absence of vitamin B12. Oh, God, if you're a vegan, you better get on that. You got to figure it out. If you're a vegan, you got to take a supplement or something. And if you eat meat, you get it in a different way. But imagine promoting the absence of B12. That's just a crutch, that B12. You're using that B12 to have energy, and you are cheating, and you are depending on this secret. That's how nuts it is
you
about
only
cannabis.
Get that B12 in a lab.
Yeah.
$30,000. You're like,
this is the denial of the nutrient.
Our health, if you look at health, it seems to be everybody's in chronic, illnesses seem to be chronic and chronic inflammation, like it's ongoing. Cannabis can make chronic happiness. Man, people forget that cannabis makes you happy too. When I smoke cannabis or consume cannabis, it brings me a great sense of euphoria and joy. That in itself is medicine. When you're happy, when you're laughing, when you're calm, medicino, man, that is the best medicine ever.
It is,
it's
but
the best medicine. Why do you think we got into comedy? I mean, we've been healers the whole time.
Yeah. Well, it is the best medicine, but I think that's one of the reasons that they kind of sit on it.
Maybe we have chronic inflammation and chronic illness in our communities now because we turned away from things like cannabis, because we got so sidetracked. We got to get back on track. Well, life can't be about being chronically inflamed your whole life. You know, you got to start with nutrients.
Yeah, those are the nutrients. Well, I'm so glad that you came on the show today, and I hope you'll come on another time. And because I know you're going to be busy. I know you're going to get busier because you're going to go from a candidate to an actual, what are you going to be, a counselor? Or is that what it is? Counselor?
It would be city councilor.
City council.
My father was city councilor in Kamloops. I came from a military background, so it was, I worked on the nude beach and sold the pot cookies, but my father, I was a military brat. We moved from a military base to military base growing up. My father was a Top Gun fighter pilot, like Tom Cruise in the movie. And he was also city councilor. So I think I come by this aspiration honestly.
Oh, I think that's cool.
And he ran for mayor.
So you're aware of the Green Veterans then, I guess, the organization that affiliates with cannabis use, as a remedy. They've had their prescription cut down from the 10 grams or whatever a day to 3 grams or something. Have you heard about this group?
I've heard about this group. My father's since passed and was not as big a legalized or proponent of cannabis as myself, but I've heard about this group. But I heard that they're also one of the only groups that get their cannabis subsidized by the Canadian government. Is that not true?
I don't know exactly how that works.
I'm wondering about this medical. I don't know how much. We're probably running out of time, but if we have socialized medicine in Canada, then eventually those people with serious medical need, will Canada not have to subsidize their cannabis at some point, the same way they subsidize their pharmaceutical drugs?
Yeah, I think that would definitely make sense.
More effective?
Yeah, I think that makes sense that would have to be the case. And I'm sure a lot of folks don't really want to change the way things are. And that's why things take as long as they do to change.
Therein lies some of the confusion where one would branch off for medical, like hardcore medical. That's where the government would be paternal.
Yeah.
But this idea of recreational, and they're saying, oh, you can only get from LPs. That's like telling a wine enthusiast they can only have Merlot.
Right.
You can't have cap. It's just not going to happen in a recreational model, right?
No.
It can only, those stringent rules that they're going for could only really be enacted in the medical model, where they are subsidizing the user. That's the only time I think they have those kind of rights over the regulatory framework of cannabis.
Yeah, because absolutely, because you get a lot of problems in the big
win, right?
Well,
may the best,
yeah.
Once cannabis has been tested for pesticides, may the best grower win. And wine's like that, you know.
That's true.
You know, you pay more for one coffee than another coffee. People who have single source origin coffee beans, you know, people who produce stuff, there's a varying degree of what you pay for wine, for coffee, you know, specialty tobaccos. I don't know.
It's called the free market, and they so often promote the free market. Oh, let the free market take reign. Unless it's this thing over here that we want to just take over.
But ultimately, you know, anybody can go open up a winery. It doesn't mean they're going to make good wine, and it doesn't mean they're going to get a big label on it. I don't care how rich you are, right? Some people have a green thumb, and some people don't. So whoever makes the best cannabis should be the winner, and whoever develops the best rapport with their clients should be the winner retailer, right? Those are the winners. The best growers should be the winner, and the best retailers who listen to their clients should be the winners there.
Sounds like democracy.
Out of it. Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
No, I'm saying it sounds like democracy. This is
like a beautiful thing.
This is another reason, it's such a great model for a democratic run. It can be such a great economic model if it's done properly. It is such a helpful property. And I think what all these people are doing that are trying to prevent it or are against it is, when you shake it all out at the end of the day, they've been on the wrong fucking side of history since this thing spun around, you know? And it's like, you have to eat your words at some point. If we let it go to the point where, you know, I want to see it in mother's milk, you know what I mean? I want to see it coming into the human body from the get-go like it's supposed to be. And then you're going to see a plummeting, I think. Like medical situations will be reduced to, you know, fixing up people through surgery and accidents as opposed to these lingering illnesses. That we're all just arriving at a place of poor health from not taking in this one nutrient. Imagine if you just had a fight and a war on against having a vitamin C your whole life. You're going to develop some problems. And now you're in trouble because you're going to an orange lounge where we sit around and eat bits of grapefruit away from the cops because, you know, we're cheating and we're getting ourselves into better health with this thing, this crutch, this vitamin C. It's another pamplemousse lounge, been busted by the cops. You know what I mean? That's how nuts it is to me.
It sounds nuts. To them, one day they'll realize they were on the wrong side of history, and we already know we're on the right side, me and you. You're alive?
Yeah, I'm alive. I'm still alive. Thanks.
To tell that tale.
Thanks very much.
And I hope we're alive to see the day when the medical model is reduced to surgeries and fixing people up from accidents. I really want to be alive to see that.
That's all awareness. That's all it is. And we're trying to bring that awareness, both new developments and hidden and suppressed informations from the past. So that's what we're doing on the show. That's why you're on the show. And I'm so glad you'll come back again. And good luck, and maybe we'll talk to you. When is the election, by the way? Just tell us that on the way out.
Thank you. October 14th is the actual election day. There'll be 50 different places around town to vote. But October 4th and 10th, if you're a cannabis enthusiast, October 4th and 10th, you can vote only at City Hall. And we encourage the cannabis hardcore enthusiasts to pre-vote so they can spend election day encouraging their friends to vote. That's our plan.
That's so great. Vote Watermelon, hashtag Vote Watermelon. Check that out on Twitter, and let's put Watermelon into the councilor's seat and see what happens. This is really good news. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right,
Great
talk
day.
to you later.
Bye.
Watermelon, everybody. That's so cool that she was on the show, and we'll definitely have her back sometime. Hopefully as a successful, victorious candidate in the matter of being at city council there. So now I'm going to try to shut my screen down. You can see the spinning beach ball in the middle just as we try to bring this thing to a close in a few minutes. But I do have some more stuff I wanted to burn through if you're okay with that. So, yeah, let's... this has a piece of music that goes with it, and it's called Cutting Through the Bullshit. That's what we're going to do. We're going to cut through some bullshit right here. All right. Now, what brings me to get to the point where I want to cut through the bullshit? Because I'm all done listening to these people that are laying down these ridiculous fucking fucked up laws. Hey, sorry if you're a young child listening. Some of the words on this show are below grade. I can't help it sometimes. I'm trying to contain myself. But listen, let me beg off here. Let me plead off and say that by way of closing, there's a lot of reasons why there are a lot of reasons why I do this show. And one of them is because I'm able to, and it's fun, and I like getting the word out. But the word that I'm getting out is powered by the fact that at one time I felt it very scary that I was so taken by this disease, and I wanted to keep it a secret. I didn't want people to know what I was going through. I didn't want people to be prejudiced by my difficulty of going through what was brought to me as a fatal disease. And it's been a fun ride this last several months. I can tell you that as we've come from nowhere to show number 10 and people are listening and are interested, and I'm just trying to bring new information to light and highlight some of the stuff that's been buried a long time. Because so much of that has to do with when I'm feeling like I'm really going to slip on out and I'm not going to be around and I'm going to die and I can't believe it, and what did I not get to do and what do I still want to do, and you're having those kinds of thoughts. That's scary. I found it scary. But, you know, I wasn't petrified the whole time. You'd go in and out of phases, and I'd kind of think about it and maybe meditate, and then I'd feel fine for a while, but then it would come back. And I didn't really feel like a warrior, like it was a battle on cancer, or you got to kill the cancer. And I know that's a kind of parlance that's used by a lot of people. But I didn't really think of it as a war. I tried to think of it as an outthinking or an outmaneuvering or an outsmarting. And based on all the available information, I guess I did that. And that's why I'm still here. And that's why I just want to bring this news forward to people. And I'm a little bit irreverent about it along the way, because I'm not a trained scientist or anything like that. I'm just a guy that went through a crazy, difficult medical ride and was fortunate enough to find my way out with a lot of research and a lot of digging. And it reminds me of how frustrated I get when I realize that this particular article in The Guardian, a mainstream publication, we've talked about it before, but it's official. Cannabis is a wonder drug capable of radically transforming the lives of very sick people, according to results of the first clinical trials. Government-sanctioned tests, more successful than doctors, patients, or campaigners ever dared hope for. Some patients calling it a miracle. I'm in that camp. Taking the drug still illegal for doctors to prescribe. That's a pretty screwed up sentence in itself, don't you think? Taking the drug still illegal, even though it works, has allowed a man previously so crippled with pain he was impotent to become a father. A woman paralyzed by MS to ride a horse for the first time in years, and so on and so forth. And then it says, until now, claims of the benefits of the drug for certain conditions have been anecdotal. That's always a big slam, eh? When someone tells you something that happened to them. But the preliminary results of the UK government trials started last year suggested that 80% of those taking part have derived more benefit from cannabis than from any other drug. with many describing it as miraculous. Were there other drugs that did better than... No! The results make it almost inevitable that the government will bow to public pressure. Still not doing it. Still not doing that. That needs to be done. The bowing to the public pressure. And we need to legalize the cultivation of cannabis for medical purposes by 2002, because this article was written November 4th, 2001. And I gotta ask, as I always do, why? Did my doctor not know this thing? I don't know. It's kind of frustrating, but that doesn't change the fact that we are at the end of our tether for another week here on Green Crush. I'd like to thank everybody that helps us put the show together. Dan is upstairs. He can't always come. Danny's somewhere else. Kim's over there. Hey, there's Russell. Starting to feel like Romper Room now. If you guys have any ideas about angles you want to cover, certain aspects, certain medical conditions, I do broadly focus on cancer, but there are other applications that you might want to know about. And we're happy to go into any of those angles. But basically what I'd like you to do, if you listen to this far into the show, maybe I got a right to ask you something, and that is to look into the science of exactly how all of this works, because none of that really seems to mesh well with the government steamroller of bullshit coming towards us vis-a-vis regulation. It makes no sense to do what they are doing. These acts have been reversed in the past. This is certainly a time to do that now. So hopefully we can get to that soon. Learn about it. Ask your favorite politician about it if you got one of those. And understand it, because I really believe that just understanding what's going on, if everyone really understands that we are being, there's information being withheld, there's information being willfully denied or ignored that's leading to policies that are putting us in jail, for God's sake, for a long time now. And also, that'll happen again if this legislation that they're talking about goes through. There'll be other people doing time for no crime. So with that in mind, I'd like to say thanks very much once again to everybody involved, and let's get out of here on this.